Jesus Christ. Alright, let's talk real quick again about Whimpering Waste. Some time ago I made a video talking about it since it was a hot topic back in 2.5. Well, ever since then they spiced things up a little bit and well, they definitely use the white amount, not the right amount, as Uncle Roger would say.
Use the right amount, not the white amount.
Generally speaking, the functionality is overall the same. You kill shit. But the new thing that was added in was this, the burning wave state. It's something that I think is actually a good thing in concept, but how it's implemented as of now is way more of a hindrance than boon to you. Let me explain why. The current burning state will give you a 60% damage increase, which is a very big boost and works on anyone. The problem is that you need to be in that state to get it. That means for the time that you're not there, you're essentially going in raw with no loop. It's just your team, your build, and your strategy. Compared to the tokens directly below, they will be arguably doing more for you because it will be stacked on top of the burning state, not tied solely to it. The cooldown for skills from Absolver, the big AoE from Plunder, and Liberation Recovery from Pilgrims will always be active and thus helping you more quickly proc the burning state, which means you're more often having this state. To me, that is way better because you aren't really in control when you activate it, which is another issue to me. This activates based on damaging enemies and killing enemies, with killing granting you more progress. By the way, if you're thinking that you'll get faster progress with multi-hit attacks like Chang-Li's attacks or Brandt's spinning attack, it unfortunately doesn't work like that. It seems like it's on a timer, and as long as you're doing damage, it'll go up maybe 1% every 1 second while doing damage. But at least from what I've noticed, you always will be going into this state at the third wave, and it'll last for about 40 seconds. The only way you can get there faster in time is if you kill things quickly. However, with enemies seemingly becoming more tanky and it catering to banner units via the tokens, it's easier said than done. For 2.6, I'm getting into the burning wave state about a minute in. This is half of the activity where I have no benefits if you pick the burning wave specific token, which adds an additional 50% damage in the state and from then on also remains permanent. And that's where I think the biggest issue starts to rear its head. It's a new mechanic that is added to this mode that not only doesn't fix the problem we've talked about in previous Whimpering Waste discussions, but it in fact highlights the problem even more because now we're getting yet another thing which is telling you to pull for the unit that will best fulfill the task in Whimpering Waste. For example, this new token is clearly catered to Augusta and Yuno because of it being tied to the specific shield mechanics they have. But it's also tied to the burning wave state, as the AoE only happens once you're in that state. That means instead of just one specific token doing one thing pertaining to a kit, like this one which is meant for Frolova, or this one which was made for Kartathea and Chacona with erosion stacks, we are now having to go through a kit stipulation and a game mode stipulation. Even when you're playing well, you'll at most get the burning state twice within the time limit, but typically in the Infinite Torrent, you're looking at one activation per go, which again tends to activate usually going into the third wave. It's really fucking dumb, and they sort of listened by the fact that they did add in a universal token, but again, it's tied to this mechanic, which is in my opinion just too scarce and overall too weak. I know I said like a minute ago it's a strong buff, but the problem most people have in this mode is grouping enemies and dealing with stragglers who have high vibration and barely stagger. The 60% works well if you're able to group or AoE down enemies with someone like Gian, but even then you're, like I said previously, going in with only Gian and his team for more than half of the battle, which really showcases how he's fallen by the wayside in my opinion. But if you're someone who doesn't have him or Frolova or even Shang Liao, the 60% doesn't fix the mentioned problems because you'll still often be in a situation where the burning state is active and you have that one fucking fusion warrior or Chop Chop separated from everyone else like a forgotten baby on vacation. All the while, your burning state is ticking down, and by that time you finish killing off the straggler with that 60% damage buff or 110% buff if you use the token, you're by this point significantly behind in wave progress because of the inability for grouping and AoE damage. This burning wave mechanic will not help enough, and in the majority of cases hinders you compared to if you just used other tokens. This would help if they focused more on major enemies and bosses, but that's not what this is. The Plunderer is the go-to accessible example of why AoE needs to be implemented more and why this token is so powerful. It eliminates and does damage to everything. So with all these things laid out, they have a few paths in making this better. They can make it more like Fantasy of a Thousand Gateways where you control it, but instead of just damage, I'd want to see a swath of different effects and buffs. I think this actually would be the best way to utilize the burning state if they really want to integrate this in more without having to rely so much on just broad universal token buffs with little to no condition. This would also be an opportunity for them to play with more debuffs and allow better performance for those of us who don't have the right debuffers. I don't have Chacona, for example, and I feel particularly hindered in this mode with Kartathea because of that, but also because she does significantly better against single targets, which this mode doesn't really have. If Burning State added in erosion application effects, that'd make runs with her feel so much better. The ideal thing is that you just open up the token choices, but since that doesn't seem to be an option, I'd rather have them iterate on this so that it'll allow for more flexibility and power to flow through the mechanic they want to see used. But I do also think generally they need to buff how much we get for attacks and kills, because the energy is, in my opinion, too high. I feel like I should at least be getting this state 3 times minimum within the time limit, and if that's too high, then adjust HP, time, damage, or scoring pools. I find it ridiculous that you'll really only get into this state once or maybe 2 times if you're playing really well, and it won't even fully last the second time around since by then you're not utilizing all 40 seconds. One other thing they could do, but is more technical, is add in different values for energy gain on different attack types. So, for example, basic attacks give you 1%, but liberation gives you 5%. This would help everyone more because right now, any and all attacks will just give you that time-gated 1% per second while attacking. Differentiating the types of attacks will still fall in line with this dumb gotcha problem of specific unit catering, but will also benefit everyone in allowing any character to more easily reach the burning state, so you can at least have a better chance to get an S rank. All characters have skills, heavy attacks, and liberations, so your hands won't be tied down too much. I hope Kuro can address and add in things the community, and other smarter people in their studio suggest, because this first pass of the Burning Wave state needs some serious changes and boosts to me. The worst case scenario I hope doesn't happen is that they essentially keep this double stipulation token thing where you need to meet a kit mechanic and the Burning Wave state to get the benefits. It's, in my opinion, just too specific. I urge you all to either add in these recommendations or your own when the next survey comes up. In any case, thank you for letting me take your time, like and sub, and be safe out there.